Well, good evening. Yeah, you can clap. You can clap. Yes, you can clap. Hey, I'm going to turn it over to your host tonight, to Cliff here in just a second. But I just wanted to say, if I just could take a minute and say hello. My name's Kelly, and I'm part of the team here at Sweetwater. And on behalf of Chuck and Lisa and the entire Sweetwater family, we just wanted to say welcome. We're really thankful that you're here. Excited about tonight, but mostly excited about what this represents. And what this represents, as I've talked with and spent time with Matt, I'm so thankful for Matt Trudy and his efforts to put all this together. I know a lot of folks helped, but really glad for his energy on this thing. And as Matt and I talked about tonight, really an opportunity for all of you to come together. You made a commitment to be here. You made a commitment to come and be challenged. You made a commitment to come and keep learning. You made a commitment to come and expand your understanding. It's so much kind of just mirrors the commitment to learning and growing that we have in this place. I have the privilege of serving as an executive coach and overseeing leadership development, and we are so thankful for people who are kind of willing to make that same commitment. We believe wholeheartedly that what got you here will not get you there. We believe wholeheartedly that ongoing learning and a commitment to get better, regardless of how much you make, regardless of how far you've come, regardless of what you know, regardless of how many people you lead, just like regardless of all of that, an ongoing, everyday, week after week desire to grow, to be challenged, to get better, and to see you all here, and then to look at this panel, these guys who come tonight to share and discuss and talk. It's just an amazing setting, a great opportunity, and we're really thankful that you're here. Hope it's a fantastic night, and again, welcome. Good to have you here, and I'm going to turn it over to Cliff. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Give him a nice round of applause, please. Well, I want to echo some of the things that Kelly already said, but we want to thank Sweetwater, Matt, Josh, the whole team here that helped bring the Sweet Geek Speak forums together. We really appreciate that. And I also want to thank you for showing up and being in the audience. As I'm looking around, I see so many people from the CIO forums and so many other different things that I do. And I've met some new people also just passing out in the reception area there. And I want to let you know that we definitely will take questions throughout. We want it to be good for you. So I think the technical term is center. So we have mics placed at the center. We will have a little bit of a conversation, but if there's a question or anything else of that nature that you want to talk about or ask us about, by all means. Now, the main themes that we're going to be dealing with here this night is going to be leadership, innovation, and transformation. And so these are very technical themes, but they're on the other side, they're not technical at all. You don't have to necessarily be in IT to look at innovation and things of that nature. So hopefully this will be enjoyable for everybody that is here. And again, if there's something that you want to ask us, by all means, let us know. So this is a series, as I mentioned before, so just keep looking out. For those of you who found it through Facebook or whatever, just keep looking out. There'll be others, events of this nature that'll be coming down the pipe, so just keep an eye out for that. So with that, we're going to do a little bit of an introduction. Kelly did give me a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll introduce my esteemed panel of experts here. These guys are reached top in their careers, in their respective companies. But to tell you a little bit about me, my name is Clifford Clark. I own a small consulting company called C2 IT Advisors. We do IT strategy. My background and history includes in the educational vertical with Ivy Tech, government with the city of Fort Wayne. I was the CIO for the city of Fort Wayne. Worked with Lincoln Financial. I have a couple of Lincoln friends out there too. It's all good. So that's a little bit about me. But basically, I want to be able to start to introduce our esteemed panel. And I'm going to let them do a self-introduction. One of our first questions that was actually submitted was, tell us a little bit about how did you get to where you're at. So we're going to have them give their names, starting off with Bob Francis at SDI. But the names, obviously, if you don't know their role, they'll tell you that, the company that they're with, maybe a little bit about the company, and then also a little bit about their journey to their seat. So Bob, start us off.
So I'm Bob Francis. I'm the VP and the CIO for Steel Dynamics. I'm gonna abbreviate my journey and start it with Steel Dynamics. So I was a consultant when Steel Dynamics was founded, and consulted with them on the purchase of their first ERP system for their facility in Butler. Liked the management team, so decided that I would actually spend time implementing that system with them. That would normally be an 8-month gig. I turned it into a 4-year gig by enhancing it and doing all the things that Steel Dynamics does to make their facilities efficient. Left the company for 2 years and went over to Thailand to commission a steel mill there. And a year after I was there, ran into some of the people that I work with at Steel Dynamics who had been hired by that steel company to consult with them on how to bring up a steel mill. A year after that, I came back with that team to be the IT supervisor at the Butler facility. At that time, that was the only facility Steel Dynamics had. And then as the company grew and we built the mill in Columbia City, I moved from being the IT supervisor at the Butler facility to the IT manager for the company. And then as time went on and we got larger and larger, grew into the CIO role.
All right, well, let's welcome Bob. All right, so if we say a term that you guys don't understand, please let us know. But ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning Systems, and if anybody has ever done an ERP, turning a 18-month or 8-month into 4 years, that's easy to do, even if you don't do anything else. And that's definitely. All right, so next we have Mark Petroff, and Mark is at Aptera. Mark.
Mark Petroff. I'm Director of Operations at Aptera Software in downtown Fort Wayne. Aptera is a software development consultancy. I think we just celebrated about our 17th birthday or so of the company. I've been at Aptera about 8 years. Had a couple different roles at Aptera. But prior to Aptera, my IT background was mostly in healthcare IT. Worked for a couple different companies that did practice management software, medical record software. And I did just kind of a combination of roles there, some business analysis. I did some development on some of the first health exchanges where medical record systems were trying to connect together with, so Indiana Health Exchange, Kentucky Health Exchange, and then Michiana Health Exchange, trying to get medical record systems to be able to share data between various hospitals and physicians' offices and so on. So I did that for a number of years and then switched over to Aptera. I started at Aptera at a role that doesn't really exist anymore. We called it a project clarity specialist. It was kind of a combination of project management and business analysis. I did that for a couple years, and then I ended up doing some on-site consulting for one of our clients here in town for about 2 years. After I came back from that, I was just kind of looking for something else. We had opened an office in Nashville, Tennessee for a time. I went down there and held a management position down there. Ended up moving back to Fort Wayne, and I've been in the Director of Operations role in Fort Wayne ever since then.
Great. Let's welcome Mark. And next up, we have John Mergy, and John is at Do It Best.
Thanks, Clifford. Good evening, everyone. John Mergy, VP of IT at Do It Best. And a little bit about my journey. So Purdue graduate. I actually started as part of the software development team for the F-16 fighter in Texas. So that was an interesting gig as a developer, writing some code and jumping in a cockpit in a simulator to test code. So You spend a lot of time testing code, right? So that was a lot of fun. A few roles there while I was in Texas. From there, I too went into healthcare. In my case, medical device manufacturing, and several roles at that company. Working up to leading solution development for computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing, and also then leading e-business. Do folks remember when e-business was a thing? Like it was like business, but with an E. So we did e-business at that point in time, and then from there, coming over to Do It Best, and leading project management, development, data and analytics, and leading to the role I have now.
Great. Let's welcome John. All right, before I get too far into the conversation, I want to make sure I know who's in our audience. So if you are an IT leader, consider yourself an IT leader, show of hands so we can see. Oh, a lot. Very good. Okay. And let's say that you're in IT, but not necessarily in a leadership position. Show of hands. Wow. Okay. Very good. All right. So now this is the rest of you, right? So who would consider themselves non-IT whatsoever? Show of hands. Couple. There you go. That's good. That's good. There's a few. So you're not alone. You're good. All right. So we're going to have a conversation about three different components. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about transformation, innovation, and leadership. We'll start off with leadership, though, as we move through. And so many folks always want to know, give us the skinny on the, the pros and the cons, the things that went that you did well to get to leadership positions, or anything that you see out there, because you wouldn't have done it, but anything that you see out there that maybe some others have kind of tripped over. Anyone?
Sure, I'll jump in. Yeah, so maybe starting as far as kind of doing things well. I think that there can be, especially when you first take an IT leadership role, there can be some pressure depending on how you got that role, or just your own personal. Hey, I want to lead transformation in a company, and that's that can be a good goal, but that's a long-term goal. The first thing that I always feel that you need to do is actually understand, like, where does the company see value in your role, and how are you going to bring business value? And to just take a pause, take a breath when you first come into that role, and really understand what the business needs from you, what the landscape looks like, what has been done in the past, and then also take a chance to get to know your team and understand their goals. A lot of times, the things that need to change in an organization are really small, or they're incremental changes that can make a big impact. It's not always necessary to come in and completely overhaul something in order to make a really positive change. And so, I think there can just be a lot of urgency sometimes when you take a leadership role to say, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to jump in, and my leadership is going to see that I made a difference. But what they really want to see is that you looked at things for the long term, and you looked at things to how are we going to transform things over time to make a much longer term better play.
John, you look like you're going to chime in here. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, boy, I would echo all of that, and I think that's an early temptation maybe to be thinking about, if you're thinking about that IT management position and working towards it, and if the thought is, man, if I can just get in there, I can set this stuff right. It's like, I know how to do it, and really what it's missing is just doing it right. And I think having an understanding of the context of what the business needs, but also what's the reputation of this team how is this team perceived that I'm going to be leading? What work do I need to do right up front, even to get before I start into it with any of the technology? So I would agree with all that.
Great. Bob, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd echo everything there. I would say that I'm still on the journey of becoming an IT leader. When I stepped into the role of the IT manager position, I was primarily a doer, and that's why I got the position, because I could get things done. What I've learned in the 15 years since I took that role is it's less about what I'm doing and more about what I'm enabling my teams to do, and finding what they need from me, challenging them to keep themselves educated, to keep an open mind, and try and develop them so that they can be as good or better. And a lot of them are actually now better than I am.
Yeah, it's interesting. When folks want to get to the leadership level, we always say that there's kind of a pathway to do that, right? And so most times you come in as an individual performer, right? And so your performance is important, right? So are you getting projects done? Are you getting them done on time? Are you meeting the needs of the people that your customers? And at some point, you kind of transition. Hopefully, you're noticed for your performance, and you also get a chance to do something where you'll get that you can be pulled through. In other words, you're looking the part. You have the right image exposure, and you have the right image, and then also the right exposure to various different things. And I always say, sometimes if you have a project that seemingly like is not good, your attitude also plays an important part. So these gentlemen here have already kind of suggested that you need to be focused on some of the business acumen also as another opportunity. And since you brought it up, talk a little bit about mentorship in getting to leadership roles or bringing somebody along. I know that wasn't one of our normal questions, but Bob, you kind of started in on the fact of, but not putting you on a spot, but yeah, what does mentorship or mean to each of you guys?
So I think mentorship and mentoring your team is probably the most important thing that you can do. If you've got a small team, you can direct and you can tell them what to do. But if you're going to be successful, if you're going to have growth and your people are going to have growth, then really what you've got to do is teach them what you know, teach them what you're seeing from the business point of view and from your view, but also listen to them, right? Because a big part of mentoring is not only, hey, spitting out information, but listening and to what they think, what they need, and adjusting yourself to make sure that as you're mentoring them, you're course correcting yourself and not blinded by, I'm sitting in this position and therefore I know everything.
Good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say I see mentoring kind of like an apprenticeship over time. I mean, what's been tried and true for many years, and coming alongside someone and giving them those experiences that you've had the opportunity of and how they apply to the work at hand. And so I would say in both directions, if one, find a mentor or mentors, and if you're in a position to mentor, do that. Folks need advocates, and that's a way to advocate for folks to bring them along. We were talking earlier about this kind of event, which is great for the community. There are other events like this. We're talking about Agile Fort Wayne and others, free for the community, folks investing of themselves to put this stuff on. It's easy to come to, and boy, take advantage of that. And so this is a kind of mentoring as well.
Good, very good. Mark?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think definitely for those of you who don't have a mentor, that's something actually that I didn't necessarily have a named mentor until later in my career. I had to kind of seek that out. And I would say that I can't underestimate the impact that's made on me, being able to have someone to go to just bounce ideas off of, or say, hey, I'm thinking of this career move, or that, which one of these things, makes the most sense for me. And if they know you well enough, they can help you, come to those conclusions, and trying to seek those things out. And I think like John said, in this kind of a forum, there's likely a lot of people in here that are willing to be a mentor, and don't be afraid to seek that out. Don't be afraid to ask. I did, and it's been just invaluable to me.
Great. So I have an integration question. So it's going to cover a little bit on leadership, but it's also going to transition a little bit to innovation. And so, as you've already mentioned, mentorship is on one end of the story, but how do we see people in their early stages of their career coming along? So more specifically, particularly, I think we have some students from various different colleges or going to school right now, and they want to get to an IT position, all right? And particularly with all of the requirements and innovations happening in IT, what advice would you give those students? What would you say, wide open, what would you say that they need to be doing? Maybe classes they need to be taking, anything that you want to talk on. What kind of advice would you give students at this point in stage of building up their career?
Maybe take a shot at it here. So a few months ago, I was part of another panel discussion at Purdue, senior student team there. And a lot of what we talked about was soft skill development. And I know that's, you talk about hard skills and the technology, which those skills have to be there. But I think a lot of times the soft skills are not given the weight that they really need to give. So that would be one piece of advice is spend time in those soft skills. Understand what is emotional intelligence, what is it, what is behavioral insight, how do I read other people, and so that I understand how to work with them. So I would spend time there. The technology, the skills in that space cycle in and out very quickly. And so be prepared to be a continual learner. And so, there's the whole growth mindset, fixed mindset. Learn what that is and how to get to a growth mindset so I can be prepared to handle change. Because it's not going to be the case. I'm going to learn this language, I'm going to go code, and I'm good. Give me some headphones, and I'm going to sit in a room. That's not how it works nowadays.
And I know we have a few software guys out there, so let that be a lesson to you. Gentlemen, anything else?
I would say take advantage of internships. There's a number of companies here in town, but just in general, seek those out. Go talk to the companies that maybe have a culture that you feel like you might fit in, and explore that. Try and get a sense of, what the role is going to be like once you're there. There's definitely an academic side, and there's also the practical side of things. And the more that you can get experience in the practical side as you're coming out of school, I think just the better prepared you're going to be to enter the workforce.
Great. Bob?
I would agree with that. Internships are fantastic things. Still Dynamics has a fairly large internship program, and we do it for a number of reasons. One of the big reasons is to give students an opportunity to figure out whether or not they really want to do what they're in school studying, because we'll many times on our exit interviews with interns get the comment that they learned more while they were at their internship than they had that year at school. And we've had students that have come in and switched careers based on what we presented them in the internship. And we've got other ones that it has just solidified, yes, this is what I want to do. I love doing what I was doing in my internship.
Yeah, excellent. So, one of the things that we talk about in regards to where we are today in IT is the need for constant innovation, right? And how do you gentlemen create a culture of innovation in your environments?
One of the things that we've done pretty recently is switch to a kind of a professional development track that we have within the organization. And as part of that, every quarter, you get a set amount of time to just kind of explore. And that can be a couple of different tracks. And so we have certification tracks, kind of Pluralsight learning tracks, things like that. But one of them is an R&D track as well. And so you might have an idea for, hey, this is a technology I want to research. It may or may not lead to anything, but I want to spend some time on it to grow my own knowledge, but also just, uplift the company in that respect. And so far that's been pretty successful. The other thing that we've done, just more company-wise, is we started an initiatives board, kind of a committee where people can come from any aspect of the company and say, hey, I've got an idea that's going to make the company better. I'd like to see if I can get some sponsorship for it, whether that's resources or funding or whatever it is. But then we also make that visible to the company so people can see, oh yeah, that this idea has been submitted. That's something I might be interested in knowing a little bit more about,
Great.
et cetera. So that's a little bit newer for us, but it's had some good reception so far.
Good. John?
I would add, you maybe hear a few themes here, a few patterns as we go. So we do something called an innovation challenge, and we've been doing this for a number of years where folks can self-organize and you can link up with other folks in IT, other parts of the business. So it's like, hey, I know Bob in merchandising has been trying to tackle this problem, and I think if we bring the right folks together, we can maybe come up with a solution. So we too give a number of days folks can use over a period of time. If we're doing this over 6 months or whatever, they can spend that time however they want. They come together. We have kind of a science fair kind of setup to where all the teams are in there. Folks that are voting get to go around and they do their presentations and all. So there's some awards and stuff that happen there, but they also get to present to the entire executive team too. And so there are a number of benefits there. Yeah, exposure for them personally, get to work on presentation skills. They get asked some good questions about, hey, did you think about this? Ties to the business. How would you see this being built out? What do you think it's going to cost to build this out? So just great exposure for them as well.
Great. Bob, do you want to add anything to that?
So, for Steel Dynamics, we have we call our 6 pillars. Pillar number 5 is innovation. It's driven across the company, and Steel Dynamics is a very bottom-up company. So it's you don't get a lot of management telling people this is exactly what you want to do. Most of the ideas come from guys on the floor, supervisors that are managing things, and innovation. Innovation for innovation's sake itself doesn't work. Thinking about innovation and thinking what could be changed, how can something be done different, keeping yourself out of a stale mindset where you go, this is how I always do things, is probably the most important thing there is about innovation. Right? There's this myth that Google has this thing where they give 20%, all of their workers 20% of their time to work on projects. Well, when you dig into it, what you find is 10% of the people at Google take advantage of that. And when Google was pressed about it, what they said was, well, it's not important how much time we give them. What's important is they have the ability to take time and think about it, and they're encouraged to step outside.
So you would say then that innovation, based on what you were saying, and others can also, is important to your industry, your vertical.
Yeah, innovation is important I can't think of an industry that it's not important to, because things are always going to change. I mean, we're a manufacturing company, right? We make steel, right? You might look at that and say, hey, how much innovation can you have there? Well, tons. We're building a new mill in Sinton, Texas right now, and it will be the most technologically advanced steel mill in the world. Why? Because we didn't look and say, okay, we have a market, we're going to build another steel mill, let's build what we already have and what we already know. We looked and said, okay, what's available for technology now? And our people's mindsets are, yeah, we're going to pick something that we know is going to work. We're going to take some risks, nothing that'll kill us, but we're going to push things forward.
Yeah, and innovation is so important to organizations these days. As they say, if you're standing still, you're moving backwards oftentimes. So one of the key things an most organizations, hopefully all organizations, is that they constantly are trying to innovate, whether to do things more efficiently or come up with a unique way of doing something to make sure that things happen. And I know in the other two verticals that we have in Aptera with software development and retail logistics with John and Do It Best. Do you have any examples of innovation in your vertical there, John, you want to share with us?
Sure. So one that we actually have going through the pipeline right now is a way to calculate net cost of product. And so a team pulled that together, and so that's one that's actually going through the pipeline right now. And I know we talked a little, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit here too, to measuring innovation. But I think one of the ways you measure innovation is really capturing, so how many of these ideas actually make it to the real world, or how are they manifesting themselves beyond just this time that we're spending? And so,
yeah, and I think it echoes what Bob said. Innovation for innovation's sake alone is not necessarily the best thing. That you could definitely have something. So you touched on it. So let's just talk about metrics in general, right? And whether it's your daily job, how do you measure what you're getting things done? Gentlemen, measures. How do you measure performance? How do you know you're getting there?
I think for me at this stage, probably measuring my success is really understanding how do I make people that report to me more successful. So, we talked at the beginning about sort of that urge as an IT leader to kind of stand out and do it yourself and those kind of things, but that's not really how I'll be measured. I'll be measured on, are the people that work at Aptera successful? Do their careers grow? Do they have good professional development? Do we create scalable systems and so on that help support the success of our clients? So when I look at things to see, are we empowering our people to be successful? That's basically my job. Yeah.
Good. Anyone else?
yeah, I think along those lines, I think another measurement is as you've established goals, corporate goals. In our case, we have a one-page plan that is structuring corporately, and then for each of the divisions, what we're tackling: 3-year goals, 1-year initiatives, and then quarter to quarter rocks, we call them. And so that's how I see a measurement for me. So the way that my team is part of that, am I serving them? Am I equipping them in a way that they're growing and coming together in a way that we're delivering on those? And so a measurement is, do we deliver on those business objectives? So,
very good. Bob, did you want to add anything? Great. Well, one of the other things that we kind of look at is, we're going to talk about theme-wise, is transformation. And Bob started out by mentioning an ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning System. That's oftentimes a very huge transformation in an organization. It also affects culture, because oftentimes you're changing the way people do the things that they normally do, and that's very difficult for change. So, gentlemen, I'll ask that you talk a little bit about transformation, maybe projects that created a major change in your organization, and how well did it go, and what did you learn?
Sure. So we, about 1.5 years ago, we moved buildings. We took our, kind of outgrew our old building downtown. We bought a new building and gutted it and refurbished it and moved into a new building. But at the same time, we also decided to open up the company so that people could either work from home on a part-time basis if they wanted to, be a little bit more flexible that way, or work from home permanently, which meant that we also expanded out kind of our reach out of the Fort Wayne area a little bit, and we've kind of have employees now in Michigan and Ohio and some of the other surrounding areas, and to try to do that kind of all at the same time, and then figure out whether we're successful at that or not, is a pretty big undertaking, and so. Probably 14% of our staff right now is fully remote, where you would have asked that 2 years ago, the answer would have been maybe 1%. And so that's been a big change for us. We've learned a lot from that because most of our clients are working on distributed teams, all over the country, in some cases all over the world. And so understanding how to support our people on a remote basis and still have good communication, still keep up the, your team culture and so on, but also have those people feel that way when they're not in the office maybe more than maybe once or twice a month, maybe in some cases once a quarter, has been a big change for us. But I think it's been a positive one, and just kind of embracing that our teams and our staff wanted that flexibility, and how are we going to provide that to them?
Good. John?
I think backing up a bit, just thinking about transformation just in general, and maybe there's a tie here to the person thinking about going into IT or going into IT management and realizing that the primary thing is not actually the technology itself, but rather this is change management. You're doing change management, and how do you help an organization make that transition from point A to point B? The technology is going to come and go. That's always going to be something different. But fundamentally, you're doing change. And how do you lead folks through that? And I used this analogy the other day for IT. Think about, so we've got this race car that's screaming down the track that is the IT operations, that technology touches every part of the business now, every audience that we support. So the car's screaming down the track, and we're working on the car at the same time. We're not taking any pit stops. We're working on it while it's flying down the track. And there's some weird stuff hanging off of it that has drag, and that's technical debt for the nerds out there. But you've got that balance of operational stability, and the whole time I'm trying to do transformations, and so that's a big part of it. I think about a particular transformation that we've been going through and still going through, and talking about touching how people work. So if you want to really mess with folks, change their productivity stack. So what I mean by that is what they're using for email and calendar and word processing and all that. So
we were just talking about adding the two-factor authentication. So for a lot of the security,
yeah,
that's another
that's
one that
so,
people get used to.
Yeah. So in our case, and there's a few Do It Best folks over here that are giggling, but so we're going through a transition and have been for a bit. So we've migrated to Google G Suite productivity stack, and so. One of the big transitions is helping folks move from native software and how it works on your desktop to something that's in the cloud. That in and of itself is very different with how you interact. And then the other part of it is helping folks get through, well, wait a minute, I've used Excel my whole life. You can't take that away, or this isn't going to work. I've got to have this 20-year-old Access database that's running the company. And so helping folks make that transition and help them see the vision that this is not about whether or not you can still run this macro in Excel. This is about information, and how do we get information to the right people at the right time so we can move very quickly. Because I really believe the fast eat the slow. It's not so much the big eat the small. The fast eat the slow. So helping folks make that kind of transition is hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's just hard.
Yeah. Bob, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so Still Dynamics has grown a lot by acquisition. And in many cases, that works fine for us because we treat our divisions autonomously, very autonomously. But there are certain areas of our business, one of which being our flat roll business, that we looked at and said, hey, we want to have one face to our customers from this business. And several years ago, we bought a mill in Columbus, Mississippi called a company that was called Severstal. In buying that mill, we walked in and looked at what they had for systems, and we have what we consider the best flat roll system in the world. And that may be partly because we wrote it and we're proud of it, and we think it's great. But we spent about 6 months with the team that was down there looking at what they had and showing them what we were using, and then came to a joint decision that we were going to replace their system down there. And it's kind of funny that you use the analogy of a race car driving down the street, because Chris Graham was one of our EVPs. He was in charge of making this project work, and he came to us and said, "Okay, we're gonna switch this out. Everybody now agrees that it's the right thing to do." And I said, "Okay, now Chris, you understand that they've got a system that's going. They've got a mill that runs 24/7, 365, 364, and you're asking us as an IT team to go in and replace the engine of that car while we're driving down the street." Without it slowing down, without it stopping, we can't miss shipments, we can't miss production. A mill like that, if it's down, it's about $300,000 an hour is what it costs us to have a mill like that down. So you've got to take the IT team and understand that that's going to be a big job. That's going to be a big job for them, and it's a big job for the IT team. It's also a big job for all of the people that are going to have something that they did on a day-to-day basis that now changes, right? Because there's going to be different processes, different procedures in order to get their job done. And that's going to go back to really when we were talking about innovation and the openness to change, right? And so we didn't walk in when we purchased that mill and say, "Hey, congratulations, you've just been acquired. Here's all the things that you're going to have to deal with. You're going to run this, you're going to run this, you're going to run this." It was a conversation. So in order to transform something, you really need to have, I'd say it's probably the 80-20 rule, right? You need 80% of the people with you. You're always going to have 5-10% who are going to be violently opposed to it. But if you've got the 80% of the people and it's the right decision, you've made smart decisions, you'll get there.
Good. That's actually really good. So one of the other things that we wanted to do tonight is we want to make sure that we answered any questions that you might have. So again, I'll just point to the wings here, center stage, or center of our areas there. We have mics. So if there is a question or anything that you'd like to ask, just find your way over to a mic and get acknowledged, and we'll go from there. So in the meanwhile, what is the general sense of IT in the city of Fort Wayne or in Northeast Indiana? You guys, what do you think?
Well, it's a good place to be. It's kind of funny that I say that, because I was a consultant with Steel Dynamics for 4 years, because after the first year when they offered me a job, I laughed at them. I lived in Boston. I was like, "I'm not going to move to Fort Wayne. You've got to be kidding me. I'm getting on my plane and I'm going to be home for the weekends, right? Because what is there here?" And after spending some time here and watching it grow over time and the city develop, it's become better and better and better. And now, I'm kind of jealous of Do It Best's move into the electric works downtown, because I just look and say, "Oh, if I want to attract talent, there's something that would help me attract talent." Right. But if you look at all the changes that have gone that are going on here, we've got the area has a great workforce. Really, it's interesting that the people here have a really good work ethic. They also have a really good work-home life balance, which I was amazed when I came here and looked at it. It's like, how can you have both? How can you have a really dedicated workforce and people who want to get the job done and are dedicated and devoted, but still manage, coming from Boston, if you didn't work 50, 60 hours a week, you were falling behind. And here, I know at Steel Dynamics, we got more done working 40, 45 hours a week than my friends back in Boston were doing in 50 and 60 hours a week. So I think when I look at it, having, again, come from being an outsider and coming in and looking at it at the beginning, it grew on me. And I would say in the past 10 or 15 years, what I've seen is phenomenal. And what I see coming up for the next 10 or 15 years, it's a great environment to grow any kind of business.
Right. And I'll let you guys chime in also. I would also add that in this environment, we have some great institutions of higher ed in this environment that can be good feeders for the various different organizations and companies here in this area. So for all the folks that raise their hands as leaders, we also want to make sure that you're engaged with those local colleges so that you can help shape their programs in regards to their academic programs. So by the time the student graduates, they have the tools that you're looking for. Mark or John?
I think I would probably echo everything that Bob said. And I would
Especially
say,
the electric works part.
especially electric work.
Really important.
Good job, John. I think, when we moved down to Nashville a number of years ago, that city had a lot of, was becoming a Google Fiber city and things like that, and there was just a lot of energy down there for various companies, and there was a lot of draw down there. And when we moved back, I kind of felt that same thing when we moved back. So in the last, especially, I think, what you said is kind of accelerated in about the last 5 years or so, where Fort Wayne's just done, I think, an incredible job of trying to set up the next 20 years or so here and really make it so that talent wants to stay here. We've had some people that we actually hired as remote and ended up actually moving to Fort Wayne. Then they brought his family here and said, you know what, I thought this was going to be temporary. I'm just going to stay. And that's so encouraging to me to see that somebody makes a choice like that to choose to come to Fort Wayne.
Great. John?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think we're positioned really well for that next level, that next place, and that combination of Fort Wayne as rated #1 place to work or raise a family. Combine that with the kinds of technology that's going on, the work that's being done. This is cutting edge stuff, and I think folks don't realize the caliber of work that's going on in Fort Wayne. And it takes spending time with other companies. The more that you talk about what's going on, you realize there's a lot of good stuff going on here. And I think you combine that with just a really good desire for collaboration in the communities. So events like this, we do Techapalooza, a week-long conference for the community. Plans that we have for Electric Works and seeing a true innovation district built out and that collaboration between business and education, a lot of potential.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I'm sure a lot of people are also. All right, we have a question over here. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Darren McLaughlin. I'm CIO for Intera Credit Union, $1.5 billion financial institution out of Goshen. You talking about innovation and that kind of thing within your organization, but my organization's in finance and banking, and we're facing a lot of disruption, right, from fintechs and that kind of thing. So curious about kind of two questions, very different, but number one, what sort of disruption do your industries face, if any? And then two, the thing that keeps me up at night is cybersecurity with the attacks that are going on, and I'm curious how manufacturing organizations and consulting organizations, that kind of thing, are thinking about it and what they're doing about it.
Great. So we're going to throw that out. But again, I always want to make sure that we're level set audience. So when he's talking fintech, financial technology, and so as a person at a credit union, we know that now folks do a lot of banking on their phone. And that is a disruption at this point in time instead of physically going in. And in fact, there's lots of banks out there now and other financial services organizations that are totally virtual, right? So you don't even, no brick and mortar at all. So disruption and security. Gentlemen?
Security side of things, I think it's interesting that topic comes up, but obviously, we maybe talked that might come up tonight. And I think this is for your industry, but also for those of you that are kind of in the moving into leadership and so on. The education around security can't be understated as, that's a thing that has to be on everyone's mind. And so a number of years ago when people were designing software, they would say mobile first and think mobile first and so on. Now you need to really change that and think security first. And so we've taken some steps internally as a consultancy, we kind of have two. We have the normal security threats that everyone here in the room is probably facing, phishing attacks and otherwise just normal IT infrastructure things to worry about. But then also we have, an obligation to serve our clients correctly as well. Make sure our developers are educated. Make sure that we use the right tooling, and it is definitely something that's on our mind every day. We've actually, had some clients that have been, the recipients of some phishing attacks that have really caused some damage to their organizations and so on over time. And so for those of you that get into IT leadership roles and think about things that a lot of times can be put to the side, your DR planning and things like that, and
Disaster recovery.
Disaster recovery planning, things like that. A lot of times that's something that somebody does, and they put it on a shelf and they say, "Yeah, we did it," and they don't realize that the business has moved on. It's also something from a leadership perspective that your executives expect that you've done, and sometimes they're not aware of, it's like, hey, yeah, that's got to be done, right? You guys have definitely thought through those scenarios, and that's not always true. And sometimes even when it has been done, it hasn't been looked at in 4 years. None of the contact information is correct. You don't know, can you really restore from your backups? What happens if your infrastructure is damaged by, some of the new crypto things that come out and so on. So those are things that, are on our mind to protect our company, but they're also things that as we develop software, we have to keep in mind for our clients as well. And much like the technology stacks that John's talk about that are always changing, the threat model always changes, and it just needs to be a dedicated part of the resources that you have at your company.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're going to continue on the conversation of both innovation and disruption and cyber, but I also want to acknowledge we have a couple of people on the sides here. But I also want to remind you that the desktop is no longer the only threat vector or the place that people get you, right? So most of us, if not all of us, have a mobile phone in here too. And I always tell people, don't open that app if you don't know where it's been. Right? If you don't know the developer, you don't know what they're taking from you. We give a lot away. So any more on cyber and also disruption? So.
Yeah, I would say on the security side of things, if you want to be scared out of your mind, go to any security seminar, and they'll scare you out of your mind.
Scared straight, hopefully.
Yeah, but no, agree with everything. Folks, I think outside of that security space, a lot of times don't realize companies are pounded continually and heavily from all kinds of third-party actors, right? Some are state-sponsored, some are not. There is a whole marketplace. Software as a service, if you want to go hack, there's a whole dark web of services you can acquire. That stuff is marketed. There's a whole ecosystem for it. There's a lot of money there. And so, it's got to be baked into business continuity planning. I think the key thing is figuring out what assets do I need to protect. It's not just, hey, let's go get all the tech and stack it up and I'm done. But what is it that you're trying to protect? Is it financial? Do you have corporate intellectual property that you need to protect? And then put the right structures for what specific assets you have.
Yeah, good.
It's real. We've had another part of it is very social, helping the team understand what phishing attempts look like. I still think that's one of the most common ways that folks come in for ransomware. And so that's just when you get an email and it's bogus and there are links in there that's going to drop something and open the door then to drill in further into your network. We've had them, and because there's so much information through LinkedIn and Facebook and otherwise, folks are giving out all the time what position they have in the company. It's very easy to go, I know so-and-so works in finance, they're likely to have keys to here.
So that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that you're not putting out too much on social media, because they can triangulate that and figure out who you are and send you a bad note. Bob, I know you wanted to chime in, and I know we got a couple people up here.
So I'm going to skip over the cyber thing because we could talk about that all night. It's all about risk. The disruption and the innovation, they're the same thing, right? And the question is, it's disruptive if you're not the one doing it. It's innovative if you're the one doing it. Right, so and if somebody's disrupting and you look at that and you feel in danger, then you ought to look at what they're doing and say, should I be doing that too? So it's evaluating what they're doing, because there are disruptors that come in and then die because they're trying to disrupt, but it doesn't work. But it's all the same thing.
I'm glad you went there, because that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it is opposite sides of the same coin. Okay, let's start over here. Gary?
Another CIO from a financial company. I'm a CIO at Mutual Bank, a $2 billion bank in Indiana. My question is a little bit the belly button question. We've talked about developing leaders. We've talked about innovating. We've talked about helping the business transform. So in some regards, I view the CIO role as a facilitator, a catalyst, that type of thing. But the introspective part of that is, what do you do to develop yourselves, continue to develop yourselves as leaders, continue to innovate your job, continue to digitally transform the things that you touch? What is that introspective piece? It's sometimes easier to tell somebody what to do rather than,
Very good.
Heal thyself, as they say. So
All right.
I'm just curious as to what tools of the trade or tricks of the trade you might have.
So gentlemen on the stage here, we're going to keep this tight because we're going to get through some more of these questions. So what do you do for yourself?
Collaborate, read, converse with other people. I mean, you've got to continually learn, right? And everybody, Kelly said it at the beginning, right? What got you here is not going to get you there. You've got to keep learning. You've got to listen to your people. You've got to listen to people that are outside the company. Pay attention to what's right, what's wrong. Let people make mistakes, and just keep on evolving yourself. Keep an open mind. You don't have to be rushing out and doing the newest and greatest thing that the journals are all telling you. Oh, this is what everybody's doing. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You have to look at things and make sure you're keeping an open mind, developing yourself, developing your team, right? Because it's for me, it's less about what I do and more about what my team's enabled to do. So keeping them going, and for me, the continual learning is just making sure that when I sit down with my team, I'm not the stupidest person in the room.
John?
I would agree with that. Find the right channels to feed yourself. That different things work for different folks, but I do believe leaders are readers, and so that means all the time. Audiobooks, finding the right channels. The other thing I would add is getting folks around you that you trust, that are comfortable with telling you very difficult things, and letting you know what your blind spots are. And some of those will be at work, some of those may be friends, family. My wife's sitting here in front of me a few aisles out, and she's going to tell me afterwards what I could have done better. Yeah, get folks around you that are comfortable doing that.
Mark?
Yeah, I think reading, obviously, a big thing. I think I would add in, I also listen to a lot of podcasts. Specifically, I listen to quite a few about venture capital companies. And so we talked a little bit about
Little Guy Raz,
innovation
maybe?
here. And so I listen to Acquired FM and some like that. But, a lot of our clients are paying us to take what they have as an idea and try and transform that into software. And so I try to keep myself up on what are these companies that are getting ready to do IPOs and things like that. What are they doing? How did they start? What do they see as what's going on next? And I think that's been really helpful for me. I've probably pushed it maybe too hard on some of the managers. One of them's out here, and so he's probably nodding negatively. But it's something that I use to try and keep myself up to date.
Very good. All right, we're going to go over on this side.
Hello. If I could talk. My name is Nathan Clauser. I'm a field tech, so on the other side of the spectrum. My question is that I just started working, been working about 3 years, and I'm looking for a mentor. I'm in a kind of a position where I don't really have anybody IT mentor-wise, if that's a term, to kind of go for at the moment. What would you kind of suggest for in the meantime while I'm still looking for a mentor in that position? Like, what can I do while I'm still trying to find somebody?
Well, first off, I think that you can have a mentor that's not necessarily an IT mentor, because we've already talked about some of the soft skills, right? And your mentor can help you through those types of issues, and that's not the profession of IT, right? That's not a technical piece.
Right.
So I think you can definitely still find a mentor, somebody that you trust, as already mentioned, somebody that's not afraid to tell you where you messed up, and
You
so
did
on and
kind of
so
answer
forth.
the question while I was standing
Yeah.
up here, but I didn't want to leave.
No, that's okay. Any other comments there? No, that's all good. Any other comments? Finding a mentor or helping find a mentor? We'll expand on that.
There's a lot of industry groups that are around that you can join. Honestly, if you get yourself plugged into a nonprofit, pick something you care about, you'll end up meeting tons of people who are really good, and I can almost guarantee you would be willing to mentor, because that's the mindset of the people that are attracted to nonprofits and helping nonprofits.
I think you can also watch. I think it's is it Meetup that has the events online that tracks events. Look in the area. Just go into meetup.com. Look in the area, and attend things like these, and you'll a lot of times get opportunities to collaborate and work with others, and just ask for honest opinion on stuff, and that could lead to something.
And I think it's kind of nice that Kelly started us out, Kelly Bird. If anybody knows Kelly in this community, you know he's one for service, and these gentlemen have already been saying it too. So a lot of times it's really maybe seeing what you can give also at the same time, and you'll be surprised what you get back at that same time. All right, we're going to go over here.
Hey, add to the banking crew. I'm Chris Saylor, ISO for Bibb State Bank. Lots of us around tonight, I guess. I think
Who's watching the money? That's what I'm getting worried now.
I think a lot of times we deal with these technical projects we want to take on, and they're really dry to a lot of people. And when I sit across from the board and I say, hey, here's what we want to do, I really try to focus on how that's going to impact the business and what that's going to facilitate for us. And I think a really good IT person has to be a very good educator. And I'm curious what strategies you guys do to kind of build that internal consensus around projects, and what do you do to really just drive that home for everyone?
I would say be a really good listener and understand the needs. So whether you're in a boardroom or whatever the setting is, spending some time understanding what is it that they're obligated to do in their role, what are they trying to accomplish, and then being able to align and make sure this project that you're bringing is meeting their needs. One of the things I did when I was interviewing for my current position, I wasn't asked to do this, but I went around, I already knew the rest of the executive team, worked with them for a while, but spent time just sitting down with them and talking about what exactly is it that IT can do so merchandising, marketing, sales, how can I help you sell? How can I help you better merchandise product? Just asking the question and hearing that, it gives you that context then to align, to make sure that technology project that you're doing isn't a pet project, but it truly is delivering on something that's beneficial for the company.
One of the other things that I think will be helpful is making sure that you're talking in terms that your leadership body understands. If you start talking all the tech terms and the jargon and all that other stuff, they're glaze over, and they're not a short attention span. It's just not going to happen. So one of the things I've always encouraged, and this will be great for anybody coming up, is to learn the business that you're supporting. right? Your profession is IT, but you need to learn the business that you're supporting. So if it's logistics, warehousing, manufacturing, whatever, learn the business that you're supporting.
I'd agree. And I use the language at work for IT folks. We are business people first. We happen to have IT skills, but that's why I'm not a fan of the, hey, let's align IT and business or whatever. No, we are part of the business, and we should be part of crafting the strategy for the business. We just happen to have technical skills in the way someone else has sales skills and others.
All right, Sam.
So I have a question for the panel, and actually bouncing off of something that Bob, you said specifically. You said when you were working on the East Coast and you were working 50, 60 hours a week, and then you came here and your teams were more successful working less. Is there anything specific about working less and potentially having a better work-life balance that you would say allowed your team to be more successful? And then as a follow-up to that, are there any specific attributes or a mindset that you would say are exemplified by people that you consider to be most successful on your teams?
So I think the people that are most successful on our teams are the people that are excited about what they're doing. The question about what makes the teams here more successful than the teams that I work with back in Boston that were working more hours. And this is probably not unique to Steel Dynamics, but 25 years in Steel Dynamics, I'm so used to the culture there that I just take for granted how well a group of people working towards a common goal is, and that are bought into it and rewarded for it. What makes our teams really effective is just that we're all working towards a common goal. There are people that will be working right next to you that you'll work fantastically with all day long. May not be somebody you want to go out and share a beer with after work, but it doesn't matter. You don't take that into work. You have a clear goal. You know, everybody knows what their part in that goal is, and attaining that goal is. Everybody has the opportunity to have input into it and shift it and change it and make sure that it works. That makes everybody work very effectively.
And speaking of that, I want to ask just one more question. It wasn't on the sheet, but remote working came up a couple times. So what are you guys doing to keep and retain a workforce at this stage? Anyone?
Yeah, for remote work, just a couple years ago, some of the tooling didn't exist quite like it does now. We spend quite a bit of time using sort of the remote first attitude, I guess is what I would say, where when we schedule meetings, they're almost always video meetings. Most people are doing them from their desk. We cut down on conference room meetings and then one person's in a remote and so on, which really actually lends itself well to the way that our clients work too, because almost all of them are remote as well. But the other thing that we do, we've actually made sure that we have done it gradually where most of the people that work for us remotely are just in a 2 or 3 hour radius. So they can visit us on a regular basis, but we actually go visit them. So next week, we're going to go to Kalamazoo for an afternoon and visit one of our employees up there. Last week, we're in South Bend and so on. And so just trying to be intentional about making sure that experience is a good one. You can hire people and assume, hey, they've got a good situation going on. We've provided all the tools, but you have to be intentional about, hey, I want to connect with you. I want to make sure you're having a good experience, and that does take some work, especially in the transformation stage where you're still trying to figure it out. I think you have to be honest with your employees and say, hey, we may not have this all figured out yet, but we want the feedback. So we use some Slack channels and things like that where people can, voice ideas or say, hey, this experience isn't the greatest right now, but here's how you might change it.
Good. I know that a lot of organizations are also looking into flex time and comp time and different opportunities, particularly for our crazy lifestyles these days. And There's a lot of, even here at Sweetwater, if you think of some of the concierge services, I think that some people at Sweetwater may never ever leave, between the dry cleaners and the food, why leave there? And gentlemen, as we tighten it up, any last comments on keeping and retaining workforce?
I think give people interesting things to do. Listen to them. I mean, that's key. People don't leave companies. People leave their bosses.
That's
right?
a good point.
So you want to make sure as you move up as a leader that you're making sure that the people that are leading the teams that you're leading have the training, have the compassion to be able to have a team that wants to work for them.
Very good.
The other thing I would add, there's a book I'm sure some of you are familiar with, Daniel Pink, called Drive. It talks about what motivates people. I think it's just it distills it down to giving them autonomy, clear understanding of purpose, and a way to develop mastery.
Very good.
And so I think it's a good summary.
Good. All right, this particular event was chock full of little nuggets here, and I'm sure that hopefully you've taken something away. Please help me thank our panelists here. And I also want to thank you again, just as we head on out for some more opportunities to conversate. Thank Sweetwater and thank the guys the team that did it. I saw Matt around here somewhere. He was up there he is back there. So, and Josh and the whole team that pulled this all together. Again, we'll stick around for a little while. So if you had a question but you were a little nervous about asking it, we'll just step off to the side. Everybody, thank you for coming.